Okay. So let me see. Okay, good. Got it. So now it's being live streamed. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are getting ready for summer and we're excited to get our kids hooked on reading. And my face is big on this picture. Sorry, I have to bring it down. And so we have with us Karlan, and this is her passion. And she's going to share with us her passion for how to help kids choose good books. So I'm going to turn it over to Karlan right now.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate Brooke inviting me to do this. And like she said, books definitely are is my passion for sure. So I wrote down a few things that I thought would be helpful for parents as you're approaching your summertime and you're wanting your kids to read. I'm just going to share what's worked for me as a librarian and with my students that has helped them. One thing I will say is never underestimate the power that you have with reading with your child. They will grab that when they see you participating and soak that up. Many times when I have a teacher who does a read aloud in their class, I will directly have their students come in. Where's the book? Where's this book? Our teacher just read this book. So they've got a great influence, and that just shows you how important that is. So read with them. Don't just hand them a book and say goodbye. Now, you'll have your avid readers, and they can do that, and that's not a problem. But when you have your reluctant readers, this will help a little bit. My younger students, so I would say first, second grade. Another thing to not underestimate is the nonfiction section. So they thoroughly love the world around them. And so any book that they can get, whether it's about sharks, whether it's about animals, anything of that nature, they will check out those probably 70% versus the picture books, 30%, because they're in love with the world. It's new, it's brand new. And so what a great opportunity to read with them, those kinds of things. And you can both learn together. I always tell my students, you are never too old to learn. I will find a nonfiction book and learn something, and I will tell them, I didn't know that. And so it shows that you're never too old to keep learning. One thing that I realized, and it took me several years to figure out, I used to have my kindergartners come in and they'd have to pick a book, and they were so overwhelmed. They couldn't decide. And then I had little girls and boys in tears because they just didn't know what to pick, and the time was up and the teacher was there and they had to leave. And it dawned on me that I'm going to grab one of my carts. I'm only going to put probably about 15 picture books on one side, 15 nonfiction on the other side. And let's just see what happens. So I gave them their library card. I said, go pick a book, but you can only pick on the cart. They ran right over there, picked the book in no time, and they were all lined up. Not a tear. And that was literally seconds. And I thought, why have I not been doing this? So I just think that sometimes going in a library is just so overwhelming, or they want them all. It's hard to choose. Now for the older ones, so I would say, third grade, I only teach up to sixth grade. When I have students asking me, what's a good book to read? What do you recommend? First thing I do is I ask them, what are you interested in? So I go through the genres. So fantasy, hey, do you like magical things? Do you like dragons? Do you like animals that talk? And if I see that spark on their face, okay, then let's gear you toward a fantasy. Let's see what we can find. Or Do you like technology? Do you like futuristic stories? Okay, let's go to science fiction. So you kind of get that, going through those genres, then it kind of narrows down to what they like. And if it's like, oh, I'm not sure, I don't know, well, maybe you just might like a realistic book, just a book of a story that can happen in real life. And let's start with that. I always say, start a book. And if you don't like it after a while, maybe it's not the right book. It's okay to say, this book just doesn't fit me. I'm going to choose another one. I do that too. It's got to capture my attention right away, or I'm just not interested and I'll never finish the book. So don't pressure them. You've got to read the whole thing, and I won't let you get another one. Don't make reading either a chore or a punishment. They'll hate reading. So always make it a good experience. One other thing is sometimes there are a lot of good choices, but it is getting more difficult now. I will admit that. Even when I look for books, I kind of know what my students like, what my community likes as well. And so I try and gear that towards them. So it takes a lot of work. Some helpful hints. There's a great lady who comes once a year. We have a library conference here in Utah. All the librarians from the whole state come. And this lady has a blog. Her site is called kissthebook.org. So kissthebook.org. I love when she comes. She will do both secondary and elementary. But what I love about her site, if you click on there, you'll see towards the left, there's lots of stuff on there, but one thing that you can click on, it says yearly top 50 lists. So if you click on that, then you'll see, it will say UELMA elementary or secondary book frenzy. So that's the title of her class that she gives. And so she takes a group of books, nonfiction, picture books, novels, and then she does just a little summary of each of those books. But what I really like, and if you as a parent, if this is really important to you, let's say, for instance, I looked up this one book called Wild Oak. So she will have language G, 0 swears, 0 Fs. And then she'll have mature content for middle grade. And then it will say violence, PG, animal caught in a trap and tormented. So that's why she rated it PG, and then it's for middle school. So I love that because it gives me more information than going to a review and all you see is just the summary of the book. I have been fooled by summaries and I'll look at them and think, oh, that sounds like a good book, I'll get it. And then there are things in there that I'm like, oh, darn, I wish they would have mentioned that. That would have been helpful. So that's what I really like about hers, that she gives those things. And then it's helpful for you to judge what you want as a family and your child reading those books. So one thing that I did do is I just kind of went through my library and grabbed some books that I really loved and maybe you're familiar with, or even if you're not, these are books that there isn't any problem. I feel like they're pretty much representative by minority authors, characters in the book, very diverse. And so, that's just something, it's kind of interesting because I've never really paid attention. I mean, I just usually have just look for a good book, but we got to look at the positive side to say, okay, well, how can we make this good? Yes, there are some diverse authors, and let's get their books, and they've got a good book. Let's promote them. And so I will just read the list that I saw and that what's really popular at my school that my students like. And you can go check out them at the library, read the summary, and see if it's a good fit for your child. So I'll start with that. Echo Mountain by Lauren Wolk. That's a realistic story of a girl that lives in a mountain with her family. Just, some of these books, I think the stories are really good for students that maybe haven't experienced a different life than what they're accustomed to. So maybe living in a mountain where they're very poor, it gives them a window to a place that maybe they haven't seen before. And so I think that's good.
Karlan,
Yes,
are these books that you're recommending, are these ones you've read?
yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
okay.
I did not put down any book that I have not read.
And can we get this list from you? Is there a?
Yeah, so I typed it up. I'm happy to share that with you, and if you want to post it, that
Yeah.
would be great. Do you want me to give you the names of these books, or would you rather have just the list for everyone to look at?
You can go through and say what you liked about it, because I'm
Okay.
curious for new books, like how they compare with classics, because I just bought all these illustrated classics for my 9 and 11-year-old, like Moby Dick, all this stuff to just acquaint them with stuff that is good literature. And even though, it doesn't have the beautiful prose because it's adapted, and I'm like, but the storyline still has those, it can give you insight into life on its own, which is the definition of a classic. So I'm wondering, as you're explaining this book list, what elements of these books appeal to you and teach the kids? What would they like about it, and what does this literature accomplish as far as like growing the whole reason we read, like you just said, opening a window to the soul of being poor and living in a mountain. I love those details. And so I do
Yeah,
want to hear the list of books and kind of why, because I'm not always sure how, you weigh it between this and a classic book. How do they compare, when you're choosing for your kids?
that's true. And I know, like I do have some older revised classic books in my library that unfortunately they don't get checked out
Yeah.
very often. And I think that's where the parent comes in to say, hey, let's give it a try and let's read it together. And I think those will help versus just giving it to your child. They may not be quite as open to that. I love a book that tells a story, and then sometimes um, my thoughts are that give them several books. So maybe have a classic book that you just want your child to open that window of some good literature. Second thing I would say is let them get a book they think that they want.
Mhm.
And then a third, or fourth, whatever. So kind of get that balance that it's, not just, oh, this is just the book my mom or dad wants me to read, versus, oh, let's choose here, let's choose there, just like introducing a new food.
Mhm.
you want to, offer, but not, dig your heels in too much. And so I think it's good to have books that teach a lesson. And then there's books that is just total enjoyment, because we do that if we, watch movies or a show. It may be we want to learn something, and sometimes we just want to be entertained, and that's okay. I think once you get them hooked on reading, it's so much easier to, say, hey, let's try this and this out. And I think they're more willing to do that. So some of these are both a lesson to learn and another just, like my favorite. I grew up loving Nancy Drew. Mystery will always be my favorite genre, although there's been some great historical fiction books. And so those are right up there. And I will tell you, I love historical fiction. I think it's so important that our children know these historical events, but in a story. So one of my favorite authors is Jennifer Nielsen.
Yeah.
She writes some wonderful historical novels, ones that I couldn't put down. My husband laughed. I had the book in the car, Night Divided. So that is about the wall going up between East Germany and West Germany. And so a family lived in East Germany, and it was hard to find work. And so the father and the brother go to West Germany. He finds a job. But unbeknownst to them, that night, the wire fence gets put up. And so now, how do they get the family across? He could come into East Germany, nobody could leave. And so is their journey of figuring out, how are we going to escape and get over to West Germany? So page turner, you're learning about historical events, and entertaining. I could not put it down. So I had it written down here, some of her others. Resistance. So she takes World War II, events in Poland, so different countries during the World War II. So really a lot of good ones. So those really are great. I like historical fiction. Another one that I just barely got that was new is called A Wish in the Dark. By Christina Sunvornet. And I know I'm clobbering up her name, but this boy is a little boy who was in prison. So I'm trying to think of the country. It's an Asian country. Trying to think of which one it is. I apologize. But he's in prison because his mother committed a crime and he was born in prison. And the law there was, even if you are born in prison, you stay there until you reach of a certain age. Well, his mother died in childbirth, so he was an orphan. He looked at the lights in the city and thought life would be wonderful.
What country?
I want to say Thailand, but I can't remember positively. If you look on Goodreads, there's a great summary.
What age is this book for? And somebody just asked as well. Jennifer, my 9-year-old daughter loves Jennifer Nielsen, and that's about the age.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I would say for sure. This book, I would say probably 4th grade on up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Jennifer Nielsen, same thing. 3rd graders, a little kind of young for that. So definitely the upper elementary. But anyways, Pong thinks life is wonderful and decides he wants to escape. And he is able to escape. But once he escapes, he realizes, what have I done? One thing that they did is they gave him a tattoo. And in that country, until they properly leave, they give him a mark on that shows, yes, they fulfilled their time and they can now be in society. Well, he doesn't have that mark. So now he has no way to feed himself. How's he going to live? He doesn't have the mark. Does he go back into the prison? And unfortunately, the warden's daughter knew him, did not like him. And so he has to hide and figure out how he's going to live. And so the events of the story, this is eye-opening. When I summarized the story to my students, they looked at me like, why did he have to be in prison? He didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he didn't, did he? So that's a great conversation that you can start with that. It goes along with, there's another book, Born Behind Bars. I'm trying to think, that by Padma Venkataman. I apologize again. Kind of the same thing, same Asian country, born in prison, and his life and what happens to him. So there's a window that our kids have no idea. And what a way to have sympathy and understand someone else's life and country and customs and what's different by theirs.
So are these true stories or are they fiction?
No, they are fiction.
Okay.
And
fiction. They're based probably upon the societies that exist.
Yeah. Yes. So, that can spur on, okay, so then what can we learn, more about that country and the things that they do that maybe we do differently, compare and contrast the two, their life and their lives. So that is really good. Another, let's see, there's, I'm trying to decide on this. An older, I'm gonna say older. Okay, an author who's had books. People are familiar with Albert Sky. He wrote 11 Thumps. So that's an older series that's kind of been sitting around. Well, he has written a newer series called Wizard for Hire. So if you want just a fun fantasy for your kids, fantasy is not my favorite genre, but I thought I'd just read it just for fun to see. And he hooked me right from the beginning, and he wrote 3 and I read all 3 of them. Really good, fun, clean, a good one there. Another good story that I thought was great, Ghosts by Jason Reynolds. It's a story about a young African-American boy who loves to run. And gosh, I read this a long time ago. If I remember right, he would go running and the track coach tried to convince him to run for the team, and he didn't have shoes, and he wanted some so desperately. I think he had stolen some shoes and then realized what he did wrong. And coach said, I'll let you run for the track team if you take those shoes back, you apologize, and if you live a good life, I will help you out. And that was another really good story, a new perspective of life that maybe our kids don't know, of not having money and desperate when they really want something that they can't have. But I think, oh, another good one, let me see if I can find it here, was How to Make Friends with the Sea by Tanya Guerrero. And this is a little boy who's got some issues. I think it was anxiety and stuff. And his mom is a biologist, and they moved to Thailand, and they ended up adopting a little girl. And he was astonished by her life, being very poor and didn't have much, and she wouldn't speak. And so him realizing his anxieties and seeing what she was going through is kind of like they helped each other. And so he learned to bond with this little girl. It was a darling, feel good, another new window, not realizing, boy, some kids in this world live a really hard life, but there's some really good things that can come out of a friendship and helping one another, and that you're not alone. And that reminds me, one of my other favorite ones is called Save Me a Seat by Sarah Weeks. That was a good one. Two boys, one boy from a different country that come over to America, trying to fit into school, and then this other boy just not fitting in, and they become friends, and how important friendships are. We all feel like they're not the popular one at school and feel like the loner, but just reaching out to someone who may be feeling this exact same way, just needs a friend to sit by, a friend at recess. So I think that's what, in my mind, I think of the classics. There's a story, there's a good theme to that story and a good message in that story. And so I look for books that have those messages that are good to share with our kids, in that sense. So, oh gosh, there's a whole bunch. There's a lot here that I did write down that are just either popular or good. One, if your kids are familiar with the book and the movie Wonder, I know a lot love that. And I just happened, when I was looking for books, I'll find it, I came across this book, and it's called Normal. I'm trying to think of where the author is. Anyway, it is the true story of the boy who had the condition that Augie had in Wonder. Oh, it's by Magdalena Newman. So it is her true story with her and her son, and the experiences, all the surgeries that he had. And at the very end of the book, he talks about this author came and wanted to interview him, and he told his story to her. And that was R.J. Palacio that wrote Wonder. So this is that true story of that boy and what he went through and all the surgeries. So I'm glad I came across that true story. Let's see.
Can I ask you a question? Because, you said it's a movie and a book. And, my kids, of course, always love to watch the movies. How do you convince kids? I mean, obviously you read with them and they enjoy it. But do you ever explain to kids the difference between a book and a movie? How do you explain it?
Yes. I will tell them that a movie will never have all the details that a book will have. I probably think there's only one book that I can remember reading and seeing a movie to say, wow, they did an excellent job, that they got a lot of the details. But most movies that are made from books, you don't. You miss out. I've told them my daughter was really into Lord of the Rings, and so she wanted to read The Hobbit. And so I read it with her. So she'd read a page, I read a page. Anyway, I found out there was a whole chapter. So, chapters aren't small, but a whole chapter in there that was not in the movie, So we talk about that and say, what's left out? So you may be getting the cherry and the whipped cream of the movie. Read the book and you'll get the whole pie. So.
I love that, and that's like something I like when I read the full complete versions of Les Mis and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I just had complete love for these characters and how Victor Hugo he goes off on tangents all the time about architecture and all that stuff, and sometimes it was boring, but
Yes.
you can watch the movie and you don't have this depth of love for these characters that you're just
exactly.
It's and movies I'm not very visual, so and I like movies, but I forget them, and these characters live inside of you the whole time. That's just
yes. They become your friends because I feel like you get to know them so well. And so that's why, I remember going to a movie, my rule of thumb is see the movie first and then read the book, because you will constantly, at least I did, I was comparing all the time. No, I envisioned him with dark hair. I envisioned her with, so yeah.
I hear it the opposite all the time. You read the book first, and then you see the movie, but I guess that makes you not as disappointed and you have the characters in your head.
Yes, because even with the details, you create that character in your mind, and so you have a visual in your head. And so if that movie comes out and whoever's hiring that actress and they're acting differently, it kind of ruins it for you.
Yeah, sometimes I get mad though, because I'm like, that's not how it looked in my head, and I want to be able to create that. So
yes.
I guess, that's a new take. I'll have to, but then I don't know the ending, so I don't care to get to the end of the book. You know what I mean? So
exactly. One more author I did want to say for historical fiction is Alan Gratz. I will say I like 9 out of 10. There's only one book of his that I was not real thrilled. But anyway, the thing I loved about him, and this would be for definitely upper elementary, because they are war stories. So depending on your child, but what I loved about him, like for instance, his one book, I think is Grenade. It's in Okinawa, Japan. And so what he does is he takes the American soldier story and they're invading, right? And it gives that story. And then the next chapter will flip over to the Japanese young boy soldier. And it gives that perspective, that story of what he's going through. And you're like, wow, okay, he's scared. He's afraid, just like the American soldier. He's scared, he's afraid. They're both there because it's war, not that they wanted to be there. And so he has those two different stories going on back and forth, back and forth. He does the same thing with the 9/11 story. We have what happened in 9/11, and then about a girl in Iraq and the American soldiers over there. So I love the two-sided, it gives you more in depth in that way. I think we tend to, and I love war stories. I'm a military family, so I love our American soldiers. But it was good for me to remember that, those other countries that were fighting, that they had families and loved ones, and those same feelings.
And that's my son. He's an avid reader. He's 19, but especially at that age, like that you're saying these books are for around 4th and 6th grade and up. But he was constantly doing like sand play battles between good and evil and trying to figure out, because kids have such black and white thinking, and they're trying to work through that. Who's bad? Who's good? And this like brings it in. Hey, they're both bad and good in different ways, and they're on different sides, but they have, so especially for this age, this book sounds very helpful.
Yes, they are. They're really good. So give him a try. And those that like those stories do love his book, and he's very engaging and really pulls you in. It's not a boring like let's read history, and kind of the same with, if you've ever read Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales. They're never on my shelf.
They love them.
They love them. They're a graphic novel. So here's the funny story. A teacher comes in. He needs to read a history book. And I said, this is history. She's like, well, what do you mean? It's just a comic book. I said, everything in there is history, but he designed it as a graphic novel. And it's kind of like, I don't know. I call it brilliant, because these kids are like, oh, it's a comic book. How fun. And these boys are just, typically it is the boys, but they read them like, oh, this is great. I got to read the next one. And I just chuckle, because it's like, awesome. They're reading history events that really happen. So there's a sneaky way, because I know graphic novels are very, very popular, and it's just exploded. But even let them read some, because they're still reading. It's not, I don't know. Sometimes I think they get a bad rap, because it's like, oh, you're not really reading. Yeah, they are. They're just visually seeing a picture along with reading. So, that's the fun stuff. And they still are reading. So anyway.
I've used like AI chat to say, break this into, like, I'll take the C.S. Lewis book and I'll say, take the first chapter of C.S. Lewis books and break it into different visuals for a graphic novel. So my kids can do a graphic novel. So the AI chat will create a little blurb and then a picture, so that they can summarize it, but also understand it more in depth. Because my kids sometimes have like audio, I forget what it's called. Audio processing disorder. And so I'm trying to.
Yes. And and that's another important thing, because there are some kids that if they just look at a written only, they struggle, they give up. If they can see a visual something along with words, they're going to try and read that, but they're seeing something. So they feel like they're reading, and maybe they're not reading everything, but they feel that, and it's success. I think they'll keep trying, and they need some need visual. I'm a very visual learner, and so I'm always aware of anything visual I can do is very helpful. And touching, I mean, we all have, think of your different senses, some people are more auditory, Some people have to see it. And so use all your senses. Think of it, that way. If you want, if another good authors, I think it's good to support some of our local authors. Shelley and Chad Morris write some good books. Their Mustaches for Maddie was based on a true story of their own daughter who had brain cancer. And so that was a really good book.
Did you
Chad,
say Mustaches for
yeah,
Maddie?
yes. So when she was in the hospital, they asked her, say, Maddie, what can we do? What can we do to help you? And she said, mustaches, they make me laugh. And so they literally asked all their friends. And so people started wearing silly mustaches, taking pictures and sending them to her. They put mustaches on cars. Just the whole community just got involved. And so she was getting tons of pictures. So while she was going through her cancer treatments, it gave her something to focus on that was positive. And what a great story that was for them. But their other books, Squint, Chad has written science fiction, The Inventor's Secret. So all of theirs are good, clean books that a parent wouldn't have to worry about, hey, is this going to go against our family standards? Great authors. Same with Brandon Mull. Very popular books, his Fable Haven, those series, and then he's written The Candy Shop War. So great books, great family books. So those local authors really are great, and I like to support them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting that list. I love that you've read them and you're getting me excited to share these with my kids.
Yes, and yeah, I just hope that even though they may not all fall in that category of a great classic book, at least it introduces them to stories, and it gets them on that path of reading. So my lists are just those fun, good reads, and then several that have good different worldviews, good stories then, and then others that are just a fun read. I love Catherine Applegate. She wrote The One and Only Ivan. That was made in a movie.
Oh yeah. My kids like that one.
Yes, and she's written The One and Only Bob. So Bob was the dog, if I remember right, in that story. But her other books, she's written about different animals that can talk or whatever. Willow Dean, Wish Tree, Otter. Darling books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any questions. I have a couple questions, but I don't know if you're finished with your.
Yeah. And I'll send, I'll give you the list and send it, and then you can, post that.
Okay. So I guess my question was, let's see. I talked about the questions with the supplementing with a video and the nonfiction and finding stuff on Netflix that go around with it and kind of turning it into a, hey, let's see it, let's read about it. I was just wondering, like, reading about it versus watching a video, what's the difference in impact in your opinion? Like with the, let's say Netflix on a volcano or a book on volcanoes.
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I like them both because, you know, visually, I mean, it comes back to those senses, let's see. Let's see what a real volcano looks like. That's awesome and amazing. But let's find facts, or that could lead to, let's find the facts. Hey, do you think we can make a volcano? Steer it into those, let's do some science together. And wouldn't that be fun? Let's learn about it and the facts about it, and let's turn it into a project if we want to do that.
So it's more personalized,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
at your own pace, and you do with it what you want. And
yes, yes.
um, let's see. And then I was thinking about a reward system for the summer. And how do I wanted to broaden them up for like a big, trying different types of books. And I like
Okay.
how you said to balance it out. What kind
Uh-huh.
of a reward? Because you want it to be intrinsically rewarding, and you sit down and you're all together. And do you recommend like how they do at the libraries? Hey, if you read 5 books, you get this. Like,
Yeah,
what do you
yeah,
think about that?
yeah. So what I did, I used to do, let's see, I'm trying to think how many years I did. So when I first started, uh, not too long after being a librarian, we did the America's Battle of the Books and saw how fun that was for our students. And so we each did it at our school. So it gave a list of books that they had to read. And then the fun part is then the students would be formed into teams. And so it would be kind of like, in a sense, a family feud, where one team would get asked and this happens in this, which book did this happen? And then they would have to respond with the title of the book and the author of the book. And then it would go to the next team, and if they couldn't guess, the other team could still. Loved it. And this brought in both boys and girls. At first I thought, oh, this will be a girl thing. No, boys and girls. Loved it, loved it. And then we decided, hey, why are we paying a company to do this? We could do the same. So then we decided to do within our own district, our own battles. We pick the list of books. We come up with the questions. So then we didn't have to pay another group. I bowed out only because I didn't have as much parent support after a while, and I could not run it plus do my job. It's just too much to do. So when I went away from that, I felt that it was important to do something. So like this year, our theme was wild about reading. So in my library, I decorated like we're going on a safari. So I made up a paper booklet passport. And so the reading challenge was they had to read one book from each genre. So it's kind of like a book club. Someone else had to pick, and you're like, why do I have to read that? And then they realize, I just read a really good book. I'm so glad I had to read that. I wouldn't have picked it, but I had to. So for my students, every genre that they did, I stamped their passport, and they would get just a little prize, a pencil, a bookmark, something small, that they were excited to get it. And then at the end, when they read, I just required 8 genres. When they finished that, they got a free book. So that was their reward. So I turned it into, I want you to read, and in the end, you're going to get a free book. So it's all about reading. But I've done different reading challenges, but I like those. I've seen like summer bingo, bingo thing where um, read, read under a tent or in a tent, read outside, read in different places that they had to mark down. And then when they got bingo, you give them whatever prize you want to give them.
I love it. That sounds like a lot of fun. You make reading fun. That's your job.
Yeah, it is. It sure is.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I think you answered all my questions. Let's see. Do you like the book Lemony Snicket? I'm just curious. Do you like the Lemony Snicket books?
I've never gotten into them, and I know they were really popular long ago. It's one of those series again that I'm looking at like, they're collecting dust because they were popular when my kids were in, elementary. And so after that many years, it's hard sometimes to stir up, hey, try this. Although I will say some of the older books, they've gotten, or at least the publishers are helping to make it better. They will design a new updated cover. And so it looks like a current, book. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'll try that. And so they're more willing to give that a try. So good for them to do that, because
I was just wondering how books fall out of fashion with kids who
They
don't
do.
know anything. You know what I mean? Like
They
they
do.
don't remember this book. So I, as
Yeah.
a parent, I recommend, certain books and they're like, no. And I'm like, how come you like something different? Where is that
Yeah.
difference? I don't know if is it marketing or top subject matter or characters. So
Yeah.
as a parent, I feel like I'm missing the mark. So I need your like new titles and stuff to help.
Yeah. And that's a good question. And gosh, I would like to know the answer as well, because I've got a series that my daughter absolutely loved, was Hank the Cow Dog. And he's hilarious. And I wish I had time to read a book with my students, but it would take 6 months to read a small little chapter book. But I knew if they would just read it, they would thoroughly enjoy it. But it looks old, and no, they want to read. But see, they're seeing, excuse me, at the bookstore. So if they go to the Barnes and Noble, they're seeing all this new stuff, and that's what they're wanting. Dog Man's so popular because he's all out there. Or if you go to the county library, that's what they're seeing. And so, I think we're the same. And I always laugh at that saying, never judge a book by its cover. And I do it all the time. I just want to go to whoever's illustrating this cover, you better make it good, because that will sell me. And I think it sells kids as well. We're just the same.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I mean, just like, that's very interesting too.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's the content at all, but I guess it's just the cover.
It can be just the cover. It truly. Yep. Yep. And what's popular, right now, dragons are the thing. So you got the older ones reading the Wings of Fire, got that dragon. And then you've got the younger ones that read Dragon Masters, third graders can't get enough of them. So, it's like, ooh, dragons are popular right now. And so I think they
like
go.
zombies. Like people are afraid of zombies. And I'm like, what? How can you be afraid of zombies? I forget what I was afraid of, but
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's the hardest part of my job. And I think most librarians is we've formed that attachment with a certain book or certain series. And it is hard to say, it's time for that to retire. It can't. No, that was so good. But that's something we love. And like you said, they have no idea. They don't have that attachment.
Well, thank you for all of this. I'm looking forward to your list, and I'm going to I'm going to share really quick how I've been organizing my books,
Okay.
and to put your list on there. So let
Okay.
me just pull up just a second, please. I'm going to share my screen. And this is how, when we get your list and we post it, sorry, my screen is a mess, but I have put in all the books that I own in Library Thing. And so this is, and don't judge me by my books. But so I just put them in so I could kind of classify where they are, and then I assign them to my kids, the books they have read, so they can see the list of what they have. And I'm just trying to see all collections. Like, this is for Leo to read stuff he might be interested in. And then this is for Naomi to read. And then I move it over. So what I'm going to do with your list is so I've scanned all of these books with the barcode, and it automatically comes inside of here. And then with your list, you can also add books and just type in the title of the book. So even if you don't own it, you could see it on your list. You could get it on Amazon, or you could go to the library, but at least you have a reminder of this is to buy, to purchase, to go to the library, so that we can get all these awesome books that you've recommended for us. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, like that. I know. I was quickly breezing, going, oh yeah, I've read that too. Oh, I love Esperanza Rising. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually went to Goodwill and bought $200 worth of books, and you buy 4, you get the 5th one free, because I wanted to get all the classics. And so now they're all organized, and
Yeah.
and movies as well. I don't know. I think I'm just like being more hopeful than anything, but
Yeah. Okay, I'll let everybody know my secret, because I really shouldn't, because then I'll be competing with you. But there's a store, a store in Salt Lake, NPS store in Salt Lake. They have, it's part grocery store, and then the other side is like a few clothing, office stuff. Well, they have boxes of books, and I don't know when they get them in or whatever, but I go there and they are $2 a book.
what's it called again?
NPS store.
Okay.
There's one in Layton, but they don't have the books like the Salt Lake one has. I think it's on 1700 South. Anyway, I just dig through those books, and I found some pretty good ones. And I'm like, man, these are brand new books. Some are, you can tell came from another school, but they look brand new. I don't know why they're getting rid of them. But anyway, $2 a book, not bad.
That's great. Well, thank you. This is a wealth of information. And as soon as you send me the list, I'll post it underneath all of the videos that I've shared through the different Facebook pages. And
Okay.
okay.
Sounds good.
Have a good
Okay.
night. Thanks, Karlan.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye.